ISKCON Guruvind ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shishi Kodintai Mai Prashashi ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol. Reading from Nectar of Devotion, chapter entitled Qualities of Shri Krishna. Number 13, Genius. A person is called a genius when he can refute any kind of opposing element with newer and newer arguments. In this connection, there is a statement in Padyavali which contains the following conversation between Krishna and Radha. One morning when Krishna came to Radha, Radha asked him, "My dear Keshava, where is your Vas at present?" The Sanskrit word Vas has three meanings. One meaning is residence, one meaning is fragrance, and another meaning is dress. Actually, Radharani inquired from Krishna, "Where is your dress?" But Krishna took the meaning as residence, and he replied to Radharani, "My dear captivated one, at the present moment my residence is in your beautiful eyes." To this Radharani replied, "My dear cunning boy, I did not ask you about your residence, I inquired about your dress." Krishna then took the meaning of Vas as fragrance and said, "My dear fortunate one, I have just assumed this fragrance in order to be associated with your body." Srimati Radharani again inquired from Krishna, "Where did you pass your night?" The exact Sanskrit word used in this connection was yamanusita. Yamin means at night and Nushta means pass. Krishna, however, divided the word Yamina Mushta into two separate words, namely Yaminya and Mushti. By dividing this word into two, it came out to mean that he was kidnapped by Yamini or night. Krishna therefore replied to Radharani, "My dear Radharani, is it possible that night can kidnap me?" In this way, he was answering all the questions of Radharani so cunningly that he gladdened the dearest of the gopis. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai. Shri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 14, Text 18. Chapter entitled Ideal Family Life. Tasmad Brahmana Deveshu. Tasmad Brahmana Deveshu. Matyadishu Yatarata. Matyadishu Yatarata. Tai Tai Kamaya Yajasvainam. Dastai Kamaya Jaisvainam. Kshetragyam Brahmana Manu. Kshetragyam Brahmana Nanu. Tasmad Brahmana Deveshu. Martyadishu Yatarata. Dastai Kamaya Jaisvainam. Kshetragyam Brahmana Nanu. Tasmad Brahmana Deveshu. Martyadishu Yatarata. Dastai Kamaya Jaisvainam. Kshetragyam Brahmana Nanu. Tasmad Brahmana Deveshu. Martyadishu Yatarata. Dastai Kamaya Jaisvainam. Kshetragyam Aram. Tasmad Brahmana Deveshu. Martyadishu Yatarata. Tastai kamaya jasvainam Shatragyam Brahmanananu. Tasmat. Therefore, Brahmana Devishu, through the Brahmanas and the demigods, Martyadishu, through ordinary human beings and other living entities, Yataharata, according to your ability, Dai Dai, with all those, Kamai, various objects of enjoyment such as sumptuous food, flower garlands, sandalwood paste, etc. Yajasva, you should worship. Enam, this. Kshetragyam, Supreme Lord situated in the hearts of all beings. Brahmanan, the Brahmanas. Anu, after. Translation. Therefore, my dear king, first offer prasad unto the Brahmanas and the demigods, and after sumptuously feeding them, you may distribute prasad to other living entities according to your ability. In this way, you will be able to worship all living entities, or in other words, the supreme living entity within every living entity. Please repeat. Therefore, my dear king, first offer prasad unto the Brahmanas and the demigods, and after sumptuously feeding them, you may distribute prasad to other living entities according to your ability. In this way, you will be able to worship all living entities. Or in other words, the supreme living entity within every living entity. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. To distribute prasad to all living entities, the process is that we must first offer prasad to the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. For the demigods are represented by the Brahmanas. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, will be worshipped. This is the Vedic system of offering prasad. Whenever there is a ceremony for distribution of prasad, the prasad is offered first to the Brahmanas, then to the children and old men, then to the women, and then to animals like dogs and other domestic animals. When it is said that Narayan, the Supreme Being, is situated in everyone's heart, this does not mean that everyone has become Narayan, or that a particularly poor man has become Narayan. Such a conclusion is rejected herein. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobestam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamvayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So repeat the verse again. Therefore, my dear king, I first offer prasad unto the Brahmanas and the demigods, and after sumptuously feeding them, you may distribute prasad to other living entities according to your ability. In this way, you will be able to worship all living entities, or in other words, the supreme living entity within every living entity. So this is the way we are supposed to offer prasadam to the Brahmanas. In fact, first of all, what is prasadam? Can anyone give me a definition of what prasadam is? Okay, so prasadam it means mercy. So first of all, we offer all our foodstuffs to the Lord, and because the Lord is he accepts this offering, and the food becomes spiritualized by that. So then this becomes prasadam, and prasadam actually nourishes our body and mind and soul. So when we eat spiritual food, then it helps us spiritually advance. And it's like if we eat food that's been contaminated by some disease, then we will, if we eat that foodstuff, we'll get that disease. But if foodstuff is spiritualized, then when we eat that foodstuff, then we become spiritualized. So prasadam is very, very important in our spiritual life. So if we should only eat that which is offered to Krishna, not other things that will contaminate us. And Krishna only accepts certain things. So he only accepts things that he describes in the Bhagavad Gita, things that are in the mode of goodness, fruits, vegetables, milk products, things that are satisfying and healthy and nourishing. So when we offer foodstuffs to the deities or to the Supreme Lord, then we offer that which he likes, things like fresh fruits and vegetables, milk products, grains, rice, lentils. And we don't offer him things that are not offerable, things like meat, fish, eggs, intoxicants, untouchable things. We only offer him the best foods in the mode of goodness. And in this way, by offering these foodstuffs to the Supreme Lord and accepting the remnants of his foodstuff, then we become purified. And this is also an important point because Krishna, we can serve Krishna in many different ways. And in previous ages, they did all these great yagyas, great fire sacrifices. And there's a nice verse in the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 16th chapter, verse 8. I'd just like to, it's similar to this verse, but it explains how the Lord's mood is towards offerings of prasad. He says, this is the Supreme Lord speaking. He says, I do not enjoy the oblations offered by the sacrifices in the sacrificial fire, which is one of my mouths, with the same relish as I do the delicacies overflowing with ghee, which are offered to the mouths of the brahmanas, who have dedicated to me the results of their activities and who are ever satisfied with my prasad. So the Lord, another way we can feed the Lord is through fire sacrifice, and we offer foodstuffs and grains and different fruits and vegetables through the fire, and that's also considered one of the mouths of the Lord. But actually the Lord prefers, he actually relishes more when we feed the brahmanas or the devotees of the Lord with delicacies full of ghee, rather than offering it through the fire. So this is how the Lord also eats through the mouths of the brahmanas. Not only through does he eat as in the deity form, but when we feed the devotees, then Krishna also eats again through the mouths of the brahmanas. And when we feed all living entities, then the Lord within the heart is pleased because we're feeding the Lord through the living entities in that way, with prasadam. So there's many pastimes in the Bhagavatam and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that describe this distribution of prasadam and to the devotees, to the brahmanas. And in Lord Chaitanya's personally, in his pastimes, he personally fed the devotees. He personally served the devotees prasad with his own hand, and he would feed them up to the neck, because his hands were so big. But he was serving prasad. It was so much more than they could eat, but they ate it anyway because the Lord was serving them. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's given us a very nice prayer to describe this how to honor prasadam. So before we take prasadam, we say this prayer, and Sarira Vidyajal, and the translation is, O Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths leading to death. Somehow or other we have fallen into the ocean of material sense enjoyment. And of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. It is very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world. But you, dear Lord Krishna, are very kind to us. You have given us this nice prasadam just to control the tongue. So now let us take this prasadam to our full satisfaction and glorify their lordships, Shri Radha and Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. So this is how difficult it is to actually get out of this material world, because the tongue keeps us in this material world. The tongue is very voracious and uncontrollable, and it's the most difficult sense to control. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that it is very difficult to conquer this tongue in this world, but by taking prasadam, we're actually controlling the tongue. So there's two ways of controlling the tongue: by taking prasadam, which is remnants of Krishna's foodstuffs, and also chanting his holy names. So when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and by taking prasadam, these two help us to control the tongue. And this way we can actually spiritually advance, because without controlling the tongue, we will not make spiritual advancement. So this is the first step. By controlling the tongue, we actually make spiritual advancement. And in this way, we can keep ourselves free from contamination from this material world, from this material energy. And there's a nice story in this regard, that there was a queen called Ratnavati in Jaipur, and one day she heard her maidservant chanting Krishna's names. And this maidservant was very advanced. She was always chanting Krishna's names, and she was always feeling, with so much love and devotion, that this queen Ratnavati became so attracted that she also started chanting the holy names just by the association of this maidservant. So she started developing this, affection for Krishna, and then she installed a deity of Krishna in her palace. And she became more and more attracted, and she really had this intense desire to have darshan of the Lord, to see the Lord personally. So one day she asked the maidservant, what can I do? I've got this really deep desire to see the Lord. Please, help me to understand how I can actually see him. So then the maidservant then advised the queen that she should construct residences for the devotees, and she should post guards everywhere. And as soon as they see a devotee, they should bring him to the house and feed, and she should personally cook and feed the devotees prasadam. And so when the devotees honor the prasad, then you should affectionately gaze at them from a distance. By these acts, you will be able to see Lord Shyama-Sundar. So the queen followed these instructions. So she got all the residences built, and then whenever any devotees came, she would personally cook nice foodstuffs and feed them personally with her own hand. And in this way, she actually had to go through difficulties, because there was so much opposition in her family, her relatives, because she was a queen. She wasn't just an ordinary person. But she surpassed all of them. She gave up all worldly etiquette and social prestige, and she humbly served the Vaishnavas. So she passed all Krishna's tests in this regard, and then Krishna finally gave her darshan to this queen. So this is a nice story to show that it's so important. This is how we get Krishna's darshan, by cooking for the devotees, feeding them, serving them personally, and with devotion, with affection. Not that it's just something that we have to do. Let's get it over and done with as quickly as possible, But actually, this is the way we develop love for Krishna, because Krishna becomes so attracted by that, and he actually gives his darshan to such a person who has developed this. And and it's actually three most powerful substances. It's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that one is the dust of a devotee's feet, two, the water that has washed the devotee's feet, and the remnants of the devotee's foodstuffs. These three are so important. If we can get the remnants of the devotees, the foot bath, the remnants of their foodstuffs, the drinking water, the dust of their feet, then we will advance very great spiritually. And there's a description of this devotee called Kalidas in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that he would do this whenever there would be a Vaishnava, no matter what varna or ashram they would be, whether they would be in a lower caste or not, he would go and try to get their remnants of foodstuffs and the dust of their feet. And then, because of this great faith that he had in devotees' foodstuffs and remnants, then Lord Chaitanya allowed him to drink his own foot bath, right? His water from his own feet in the Jagannath Priya temple, where Lord Chaitanya went to wash his feet. Then Kalidas started drinking that water that was dripping from Lord Chaitanya's feet. And normally nobody was allowed to drink that water. But Lord Chaitanya allowed Kalidas to drink this water, because he was so advanced spiritually, because he had so much faith in the devotees' remnants. So we can't underestimate the importance of these pastimes, this prasadam. And it's also another important point is Advaita Acharya Prabhu. He showed this importance of feeding the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, because when it was this ceremony called the Shrad, which is offering to the ancestors, then the first offering would be given to Brahmanas, and he would actually, instead of all the other Brahmanas, he would feed Haridas Thakur first. He would get the first plate of the Shrad ceremony. And this was actually against, because Haridas Thakur was not born in a high-class Brahmin family, he was an outcast, considered an outcast, then he wasn't supposed to get it. But Advaita Acharya would feed him first before any of the other Brahmanas. And Haridas Thakur would, oppose. He would say, "Why are you feeding me? I'm just an outcast." And Advaita Acharya would say, the result, he was getting the result of feeding 100,000 Brahmanas by feeding Haridas Thakur, because Haridas Thakur was a great Vaishnava, and he surpassed all the Brahmanas. So the conclusion is that if one can feed a Brahmana or a Vaishnava, it's better than performing hundreds of thousands of sacrifices. That's what Prabhupada says in the purport. In this age, therefore, it is recommended that Harinam, chanting the holy name of God, and pleasing the Vaishnavas are the only means to elevate oneself to spiritual life. So, by chanting Krishna's names and pleasing the Vaishnavas, Vaishnav Seva, and chanting the holy names, Nam Ruchi, and also having compassion for living entities, Jiva Daya, these three things are the most important ways how we can develop or elevate ourselves spiritually. And this is described back to Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that these three things, Nam Ruchi, Jiva Daya, and Vaishnav Seva, are the three things that are most important. So if we want to spiritually advance, then we chanting Krishna's names, serving the Vaishnavas, and having compassion for other living entities by going out and distributing books, distributing prasad, and distributing the holy names to others. And this way we can advance very quickly in spiritual life and get Krishna's darshan. Krishna is very pleased by these three activities. So we have got all these three activities that we can perform daily in our life in Krishna consciousness. So we've got no excuse, but it depends on our mood, how we're doing it. This is what Krishna is attracted by, not the actual activity, but the mood in which we're doing it. So we have to be very willing and very eager to serve the devotees, not just thinking it's something that I don't really want to do, but I have to do. But we actually should have affection for serving the Vaishnavas, and affection for chanting the holy names. It's this affection that we have to develop, affection for these three activities, so that this will attract Krishna's attention, not just mechanical service, but actually with proper mood and with proper devotion. And then Krishna will bestow upon us so much mercy. Is there any questions or comments?
She was crying because she'd heard that when you chant inattentively, it's like throwing arrows on Krishna's body.
Chanting inattentively.
Yeah. And she was thinking, I don't want to hurt Krishna while I chant. So she was crying while she was chanting. And then Krishna appeared in the temple room. Nobody else could see him. She was at the back. And he went over and sat by her and put his head on her shoulder. And later on, our spiritual master knew that that's what had happened as well. So should we have that faith that can happen to us, that Krishna can just give us his darshan if we have the sufficient faith?
Of course, Krishna can give his darshan when he wants. He's independent, and but we don't start telling everybody about it if it does happen. But this is our line. Krishna is personally present in the holy name. If we are actually chanting with that much faith, then Krishna is present. The same with the deity form. Krishna is present Same with the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. Krishna can give his darshan if we please them. So it's all there. It's not just some sort of stories that we read. They're all factual stories. They're real stories. Is that okay? Well, that's why we need to read so many stories of these great devotees who have darshan of Krishna. That gives us so much faith that it does happen. You know, there's a beautiful book called Bhaktamala that I'm reading just now, and it's just all stories of devotees who have a darshan of the Lord, and Bhaktamala, and how affectionate the Lord is to the devotees, and how much affection the devotees have for the Lord. And it's just amazing to see how many different types of devotees there are and how they get darshan of the Lord. Yeah, I can't remember all the details. Yeah, it was he was it's a sort of harmonica. Is it what those? I don't know what it is. It's an instrument that he played, and he was a great musician. But he wasn't. He was playing. I read into it that he was from a Muslim background, but he used to play outside temples and stuff like this. He had that kind of security, and he was very kind of into this kind of music and different rags and stuff. And then in a train one time, he was actually going to a concert where they were going to be performing the great musician, I don't know his name, he's a famous flute player in India. He was going to be there. There was going to be all these maestros there to sing, to do the music. So he was on his way there in a train. And then this boy came on board, and he was playing a flute. Was it a flute? I can't remember. And yeah, so he started playing this music, and this Muslim man, he was like enchanted by it, and he says, "Please, can you do it again?" So he gave him some money. Can you? Because he never heard this rag before, and and he brought tears to his eyes. So he kept giving him money to play it again and again and again. And eventually, the boy left the train, and this man arrived at his place, and he had this rag in his. So he played this rag, and melody, and nobody had ever heard it before. And even the maestro, the greatest flute player in India, hadn't heard it before. He says, "What rag is this that you're playing? What melody is this?" And he said, "It's called Kanahara rag." Krishna, and he realized that it was Krishna who had given him this, who'd given him his darshan in this form of this boy playing this flute, and it was in the newspapers. It was actually it's quite a famous story, and it was an amazing story when you read it. It's amazing. So Krishna can come in any form and give you his darshan. You won't understand it, but it happens. That was one of a recent story, and so that's a very famous rag now called Kanahara rag and Kanayahara rag, something like that. I don't know all the details of that story, but it's by somebody called, I think, Nabu Goswami, and his disciple Priya Das wrote the commentary, and it's great devotees from different times, eras, from different sampradayas, all like having different relationships with the Lord, and how the Lord gives them darshan in different ways. And it's just amazing that Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, so if we read stories that are, there's, these stories are there to help build our faith so that we can understand that the Lord does give darshan to so many different types of devotees. And the Lord is unlimited. And it brings us to see how much affection the Lord has for his devotees and how much affection the devotees have for the Lord. And it was written about 500 years ago, around the time of Lord Chaitanya, or just after that. So it's very, very nice. It's translated by an ISKCON devotee. I think, I can't remember who. But it's very, very nice to hear these stories because it gives us faith that all these great souls got special mercy from the Lord. They were able to see the Lord personally. And the real thing is that how much the devotees had love for the Vaishnavas. It's the whole section on how the devotees served the Vaishnavas, how they fed them, how they looked after them, how they cared for them. And this is what pleases the Lord when we serve the Vaishnavas. And there was one story where there was one pujari, and he was feeding. He had so much love and devotion for the Vaishnavas that he was feeding them, and he kept feeding them, and he forgot to put the deities to rest that night. So that night, when the devotee remembered, oh, I haven't put the deities to rest, so he went up to the Lord to put him to rest and wanted to offer him something, and the Lord rejected it. He says, "You didn't put me to rest last night. You forgot." And the pujari says, I forgot to put you to rest. I committed some offense to you, but that's okay. But it's better that than I commit offenses to the Vaishnavas. At least I didn't commit offenses to the Vaishnavas. And that way the Lord was pleased by that, because he realized that, yes, the higher than service to the deity is service to the Vaishnavas. So the Lord accepted his offering after that. So it just shows that the Lord is more pleased when we please the devotees. Even if we commit offense against him, it's okay, but we shouldn't commit offense to devotees. That's actually worse. So, so we should always be careful not to commit offenses to Vaishnavas. It's very, very easily done, and it's one of the things that doesn't please Krishna. So we should always be very careful and not, judge everyone with our own limited conception, because Krishna sees beyond, our perception. Stop there. You have any questions?
Hare Krishna, thank you for your class. I was just wondering if a person may be practicing different kind of spiritual practice faithfully, and with nicely practicing whatever different sort of like practice, would he also or she would also come to this platform understanding the highest thing is chanting and serving Vaishnavas, or would they also come to the similar conclusions?
Well, it just depends how sincere they are. But eventually, hopefully, we're all going to come to the point of pure love for Krishna. But sometimes devotees may be following different paths, and it may take them longer. Although they think it's short, they think they're getting there fast, but it may take them longer, because they have to get rid of that pride that's thinking that they're better than everybody else. So of course there's different paths, but it depends on our goal. What is our goal? There's so many different types of devotees, so many different types of paths. But it's not that they're not devotees, but they're just on a different path and their goal is different. So it's like if you're a worshipper of Lord Ram, you may want to go to Lord Ram, you may not want to go to Goloka, you know. So that's your path. It's maybe not the highest according to us, but that's perfect for that person. You know, like Hanuman, he's full devotee of Lord Ram. He's not going to change that, you know, for anything else. So different paths are there for different types of personalities. And so it's not like everyone's, you know, it's all one sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember because I had one story from one of the Maharaj that he was telling how he was in distribution and he met his Muslim who was like very strict with his practice, and he said himself he naturally kind of like found himself that by eating meat he kind of like it was difficult for him to practice his prayers, so he kind of like naturally came to this path from a vegetarian, and somehow other he find his way into the temple of Hare Krishna temple. So I can't remember who gave the class, but it was just like a story like that.
Yeah. So if they follow their path properly, then they will come to the proper conclusion. They will come to Krishna consciousness eventually, in some form or another, because they will start following vegetarian diet. Then they will follow the principles, and eventually they will come to that point. If they're sincere, if they're just fanatical, then they won't. But if they're very sincere, they will come to that point of seeing that there is, it's all stepping stones to Krishna consciousness in that sense. Different faiths. So yeah, because it's like the principles that they in most faiths is that we love to learn how to love God, right? But they're just following it in a different way, and it's maybe not as like pure, you know, like they may accept that there is a God, but they may not be following like, you know, all the ways to spiritually advance, like become vegetarian, you know, give up eating meat and taking intoxicants and all these things. But at least they have belief that there is a God, you know, so there's a first step, you know. And there's so many different you call it prophets or, you know, teachers in all these different faiths that are trying to lead them to that goal. But because they're not able to accept something higher, they can only accept so much. Like Jesus says, there's more to tell, but you cannot bear it as yet. So you can only give them so much, you know. So they have to start from somewhere, you know. So all the different faiths are there for different types of people with different faiths. And they may not all have the same surrender to God. You know? So they can only surrender this much. So, okay, the different faiths are there so that they can surrender to some degree and make some spiritual advancement. So, okay. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Burani Badikamani, Shratavyanika Bhagasa, Ata Sadotret Salam, Samudjitama Nishaya, Bruhi Badraya Bhutanam, Yenatma Suprasidati. That there's many varieties of scriptures and religions and all different types of things, but we just want the essence so that our hearts can become fully satisfied. So that's the, and then he said, then Save Pumsam Paro Damo Yato Bhaktirat Huksaja Hitikapatiyat Yatma Suprasidati. So that which will completely satisfy the self is when you achieve pure, unmotivated, uninterrupted, loving absorption and serving God, you know.
Yeah, also like Prabhupada describes that it's like dictionaries, you know, got the full Cambridge dictionary with the thick one, and then we've got the pocket-sized dictionary. They're both dictionaries, but one's got more detail than the other. So it's like so many different faiths, and they may not give like much detailed information about God. You know, you may just say, well, God has not got a form, he's everywhere, and you know, they don't have a detailed information of God's name, where he lives. You know, like Prabhupada says, we can give God's name, his address, everything. You know, so because we have got more information, the Vedas, the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita gives more information about what is the soul, what is the body, what is God, what is his name, what does he look like, where does he live, what does he do. All these things are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, whereas it may not be described in the Bible or the Quran. They may only have a certain vague idea of that there is a God, and you know, but it doesn't give detailed information about him. So they only is limited to a certain amount of knowledge they have then. Whereas when we read the Bhagavatam, we have much more knowledge of, well, what is his name, what does he look like, what does he do, where does he stay? All these are described. So it's
Gave the example there. If you said that this £5 note was a forgery, then you would have to show what a real £5 note was. So if you say that your description of God isn't correct, and we follow our scriptures, then you would have to ask, well, what is your description of God? And if you can't say what the real £5 note looks like, then you can't say it's counterfeit. You don't have an alternative. So it is only in the Vedic scripture there's this specific description of the form, the personality, the qualities, the pastimes of God. You won't find it anywhere else.
yeah. So as I say, certain scriptures are for certain classes of people, but who can only understand to a certain degree. So they're given that particular scripture to follow. And then as they advance, they become more and more attracted to the personal features of God. And then they can enter into more understanding of who God is. Because and the main process in all religions is to chant God's name. So Prabhupada explains that whatever faith you're in, the process is there. You chant, hallowed be thy name. In the Christian, they say the other chant. Prabhupada says you can chant Christ's name, you can chant Buddha's name, you can chant Jehovah, you can chant Allah. They're all names of God. There's only one sun, but there's many different names for the sun according to different languages. So, but it's only one sun in the sky. So in the same way, there's only one God, but he has many names. So we can call him by different names and we'll make spiritual advancement. So the process is still the same. The process is chanting and hearing about God. And whatever faith we're in, we still have to do that. And that process will purify us. So chanting the names of God is the main process for all faiths. And, glorifying him and, hearing about him and serving his mission, spreading, helping others to understand him. It's all part of the same mission.
And most of the examples given of this four blind men in the room, and they're trying to figure out what the elephant is. One thinks it's a barrel, he's rubbing the belly. One thinks it's a rope because it's feeling his tail. Another one thinks it's a snake because it has its trunk. One has its leg and it says it's a tree. But if you put them all together, then you'll get a clear picture of what the elephant is, So different faiths have different aspects of God. And it's not that they're wrong, but it's only one aspect. You put all the aspects together.
Yeah. And also we can see that God has many ways of showing that he's here through different ways. He's present in every atom as a Paramatma, in everyone's heart as the super soul. He's present in everything as all his energy is Brahman, is an impersonal energy, but he also has a personal form. So there's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. There's 3 different features of the Absolute Truth. So depending on our consciousness, depending on our advancement, we can understand whether he's on the level of Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is the highest, but it's like the sunshine and the sun god, you know. If somebody's just interested in the sunshine and they don't really accept that there is, you know, a sun planet and a sun god there, they only accept that there's a sunshine. So they think that's the highest. But then somebody further can say, well, there's actually a sun disk, so they want to go there. And then somebody says, well, actually, I want to meet the sun god. So that's Bhagavan realization. So it's I mean, it's similar to Bhagavan realization, not that it is, but it's the same way that there's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So depending on somebody's consciousness, they can come to a certain level of understanding God. But that's why association of devotees is so important, because a devotees association will help somebody come from the level of Brahman, impersonal Brahman realization, to pure devotional service, to accepting God as a form. And we see that Lord Chaitanya, you know, defeated all the different types of impersonalists, the Tattvavadis, so many in the Buddhists, everyone, and showed that God actually has a personal form. And even the Muslims, Lord Chaitanya has a conversation with the Pathans, right? And Chankazi, he defeats him as well, to show that in all the scriptures there is definitions that there is God has a form, or he's a father, or he's some sort of being, not just some impersonal thing. But because people they don't understand it, they kind of miss the point. They kind of overlook all these points in the scriptures, and they don't understand that he's actually, there is a personal aspect given in the scriptures, but people overlook it because they're not in the proper consciousness to understand it. You know? So there is evidence there in the different scriptures. Is that okay? Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Is that okay? Anyone else got any? Yeah, so it's very rare for somebody to come to the point of understanding Krishna. There are millions of men, amongst millions of people, then one may endeavor for self-realization. And out of those who have attained self-realization, hardly one knows me in truth, Krishna says. So, you know, it's not like it's just a general knowledge for everyone. Out of millions of living entities, one may endeavor for perfection. Out of those who have attained perfection, hardly one knows Krishna. So it's not a normal, easy, everyday thing to do. So, but it is possible through this process of Krishna consciousness, we can actually. And the process to see God is to hear. Hearing is seeing. Vaishnava sees with his ears. So it's not that he sees with his ears, but he doesn't, he tries not to accept things from like, what's it called? Direct perception. Trying to understand things through direct perception. He actually hears Shabda Brahma, hears transcendental sound vibration, and that is actually coming from a higher source, and that purifies the heart, and then we can understand higher things. But if we try to find things, try to understand things from a direct perception, then we're going to make mistakes. We'll not understand things properly, because we have a tendency to commit mistakes, tendency to cheat and be cheated, tendency to be illusioned, and what's the fourth one? Imperfect senses. So with these four defects, we can't understand reality properly. So that's why we need transcendental sound vibration, transcendental knowledge to actually understand transcendental subject matters. We can't understand things through our material senses, material logic, material attempts. We have to understand something through higher, and the path has to be transcendental. We can't because Krishna is transcendental, the path to understand him has to be transcendental. It can't be material. You know, we can't understand transcendental things through material things, through material path. So we have to understand through transcendental path. So that's why we have to follow a particular transcendental path that will lead us to Krishna. Otherwise, we'll be bewildered by the material energy. Okay.
Just a little thing. Yesterday, I met this person, and he was kind of saying this direct perception of things, and saying that because of that, he was saying, "I'm about to join the dark side."
Sorry, say that again.
So he was saying because he had that direct perception, he was saying that we naturally, we human beings, we have this evil inside of us. So it's like we should accept it, right? He said he's about to join the dark side, you know. So but I was explaining that, you know, because we have imperfect senses, we may just take it wrong, right? So we have to take it through hearing sort of authorities. So because we cannot perceive it directly, we have to take it for someone who's seen the truth, kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but it was a difficult conversation.
Yeah. You know, if we follow whatever comes in the mind, that's not actually going to take us anywhere. It's just it's misleading, because the mind can conjure up with all sorts of things, and if we just follow what the mind says, then we're definitely going to be stuck in this material world, because it's material energy. You know, that's why we need to understand what is transcendental by associating with transcendental things. We associate with the book Bhagavat, the devotee Bhagavat. So by associating with devotees and reading the scriptures about Krishna consciousness, then we can actually understand things higher. So the hearing process has to be there to understand something higher. It's a descending process. The ascending process is we try to understand things through our own senses, you know, and through our own mind and senses, which is very limited and which isn't actually perfect. Whereas if we understand things from the descending process, that is coming from a higher source, realized souls who have realized the truth, and Krishna says we should actually serve them submissively and render service unto them and hear from them, and then we will establish in the truth, you know. So that is the process. Just approach a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. And this way you can understand the truth. You know, so the process is given by Krishna himself. So we can't create another process artificially. You know, the process, we have to follow Krishna's process. This is the process he's given us, that we have to accept from a higher source the scriptures, the spiritual master, the sadhus, the saintly persons, and that way who have actually realized the truth. They've realized the truth and they can impart this truth to us, and that's how we can understand it. You know, we can't understand it through our own sense perception, our mental concoctions, speculations. It's not going to be the proper understanding. Okay, I better stop there. Thank you for attending. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, ISKCON Guruvind ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shishi Godin Mai Prashishi ki jai, Gaur Premanand,
HG Jagannath Priya ki jai.
Gaur Bhaktavind ki jai.